All right. Pretty simple agenda today, and you guys hold the power to decide where we are headed. We have we're going to do our stand-up, go over what we learned yesterday. We're going to switch into our terms review. I've got a new document all set up and linked in Canvas for terms. We'll try and get in the habit of having that updated the Monday before class. And then on Thursday, we'll go over that list and kind of collaborate on some ideas and add terms to it. I did link to all of the code that I have so far, so you guys can check that after class. And then we'll vote on whether we want to finish YouTube or go kick off Netflix and get started there. Any questions before we dive into stand-up? Cool. So what did we learn yesterday? What are we thinking? What light bulb moments did we have? Feel free to come off mute too. You guys don't have to always use chat. Sometimes it's nice to hear your voices. And
I would say putting the I forget the name, but like the background and like the search bars, or even like right by like the menu bar.
yep. Yeah, that's a powerful technique, right? A little hover effect, make it feel a little bit more interactive, get that styling going. Totally a powerful thing to do. We use those CSS pseudo selectors to pull that off with the hover. So that's a good one to learn. Kenny said using inspect tool was really helpful, kind of like previewing changes you make on the site before actually coding it in CSS. Yeah, you can definitely see how much I use the inspect tool to play around to see what changes I'm trying to make. Sometimes that's a better playground than changing it in the code itself. And the nice thing with the inspect tool is if you break it horribly, you can just refresh the page and all those changes go away. So inspect tool, definitely a very powerful tool that a lot of front-end developers would use. We also covered the Can I Use website. Sorry, Tower, I read that and I was like, Can I Use website? What website are you talking about? Can I use that? CanIUse.com, the website. Yes. That is fortunately not a website that we need to use a ton anymore, because a lot of browsers support formats and standards in HTML across the board. But there are certainly times that we will try to do something and it will work in one browser and it won't work in another. And that's Can I Use is a very helpful database to know what versions support that feature in the HTML. And they'll tell you what percentage of the world is using that. I know it sounds like Internet Explorer is a thing that's dead and gone because Microsoft killed it off sometime last year, but you would be shocked at the number of companies and organizations that are still running Internet Explorer because they haven't updated their code to support more modern browsers, or the company has that one legacy piece of software that they just can't move off of. And for that very reason, that's why they still use Internet Explorer. That is certainly true in the healthcare space, unfortunately. Definitely learned the pain of knowing that it takes plenty of time to tweak a layout, right? Seeing that it took me, over half the class to just build the nav bar. It does take a lot of time to build in the front end, and there's a certain amount of speed that you pick up in doing that, and you do kind of reach a point where you can build almost anything, but the question always comes down to is how long is it going to take me to build that, right? And that is one thing that it does just take time to get through all of that kind of stuff. Any other things from yesterday? Anyone have a light bulb moment where something kind of clicked from class before? Goggin, what's up?
Hello?
Yeah.
Oh, all right. I was gonna ask, so in like future, if we wanna design in like Flexbox or Grid, can we just do that, or are we gonna have to follow these to get it done?
So we only have 1 week left of HTML. I think the schedule says we have 2, but because you guys are a little bit further ahead than where we have been in previous cohorts in terms of understanding, we're going to make next week our last week of HTML. So we won't be covering Flexbox or CSS Grid. However, that does not mean you can't use them. If you want to use them in your capstones or even in the projects that we're doing this week, that is totally fine. And I will say the same thing that we did for the news site. If you're able to do the Netflix page on your own and the portfolio pages on your own, that is totally fine to do them. Send them to me in Slack and we'll just mark you as present for attendance. You know, I encourage everyone to stick around from class just to see what you can pick up. But if you are way ahead of HTML and CSS, and you know, you aren't struggling building these pages at all, totally fine to just build them out and submit them. And then the other thing that I will say is that JavaScript certainly turns up the heat a little bit more. So we find some students come in with a little bit more experience on the HTML and CSS, and then JavaScript kind of hits them hard, and that's when class really starts becoming a little bit more fun.
That'd be me.
And that's totally fine, right? Everyone has a different level of coding experience. Our program is meant for that. I know the first couple weeks always kind of start out going slow, but then once we get into JavaScript, it tends to be that the learning, the playing field in terms of learning becomes a little bit more leveled. Yeah, totally fine. The Netflix page and the portfolio page, if you want to work ahead on those, you can send them to me in Slack and then we'll mark you present for next week. We will either be doing, depending on what we vote on here, we'll be doing either the rest of YouTube today, and then we'll do 2 days on Netflix and 2 days on the portfolio site. Or if we decide to do Netflix today, we'll just obviously kind of shift everything over and then have 3 days to work on that portfolio site. Netflix is exactly what you would anticipate. I will post in the daily outline a bunch of images that you can kind of use for the thumbnails, but the Netflix page that we are going to be rebuilding is kind of the Netflix homepage after you sign in, where you get like the big banner image of whatever show they're featuring, and then a couple rows of TV shows, and then the nav bar up at the top. So that's what we will be recreating, and we will decide whether we are going to dive in. Okay, before we get to that, or I guess while we're here, let's just go ahead and decide. I'm going to recommend that we move on to Netflix, only because while I'm totally up for finishing out YouTube, I think it will be more helpful to kind of be back in that normal swing of doing a little bit of code and then having you guys practice a little bit. But I know what it's like to be working on a project and not have that sense of completion. So if you guys really want a repeat of last night, you certainly can vote for YouTube. But like I've said, I'm kind of leaning into it will be more helpful for you guys to move on to Netflix and get a jump start on that.
So I didn't get you said just build the Netflix and the portfolio. So you want just the mock-up, right? On both, or you want the portfolio to be working?
The portfolio, I will send you a specific link. So the portfolio that we're building is, make sure the link is working before I post it. So this is the portfolio site that we'll be building. This will also be the first site that we build that has multiple pages. You'll notice that down in the portfolio section, if you click into any one of those pages, it takes you, I think the first page actually takes you to a sublink. So we'll be building both of those pages. Oh, sorry, Rain, I sent that link to you and sent it to everyone. My bad. We'll be building both of those pages in the portfolio site, and that's going to be our first site that we kind of do from scratch, right? Where we're still working off that site. We will also be making that site mobile responsive. So that's the second thing that we'll be working on. And then the other thing that we'll be building is Netflix. And give me 1 second to pull that one up. Um, 1 second to upload this. Get link. Link, copy. So that is the I call it MaxFlix. That is what we will be recreating in code, and it looks like the vast majority of you guys are looking forward to getting started on Netflix. So that's totally cool. We will be doing that tonight. Let me get that linked in the portfolio or in the daily outline. MaxFlix mockup. And there is also an image folder that I need to share with you guys. That I, of course, do not have uploaded. Give me 1 more second. Sorry for the hold up. We're gonna go back here to the outline and MaxFlix image assets.
I had a question about.
Yeah.
So since we're using bootstraps,
Yep.
is a Flexbox and grid will work with it? Fine.
Yes. Yes.
Because I think it works with the because it's like built in for Bootstrap and right, like
The
Flexbox is built in Bootstrap.
The Bootstrap grid, I believe, just upgraded to the CSS grid in Bootstrap 5. Bootstrap 4, I believe, use Flexbox, but any CSS property that's supported by the browser, Bootstrap doesn't conflict with, so it's totally fine to use that.
That's good.
Okay, so in the daily outline, I just posted some assets, including the MaxFlix mockup and the IMG assets and the mockup. And then next week, we will be diving into the portfolio site. So I will put that under the day 2 outline as well of the live site to rebuild. And that is going to link to... Okay, so make sure that works. Yep. All of the links are in the daily outlines. So if you want to work ahead, that's totally fine. And then you can just Slack them to me and we'll make sure that you are marked as present. If you don't want to work ahead, that's totally fine. We're going to be working on these 2 projects for the next 2 weeks. Or if you want to work ahead and then kind of tune off tune out and just listen in, that's also fine. If you get them submitted and send them to me in Slack, you don't need to keep your camera on. We'll make sure that you get mark present if you get the projects created before we go through them. Give me 1 second. Okay, we are going to dive into our terms and then we're going to get started on the Netflix project. So the terms sheet is linked in 2 locations. One, if you head to our daily outlines, I have the terms review linked in our day 4, which is going to be MaxFlix part 1. So you can get to it that way, or you will notice that I have 2 new links added to Canvas. I have added the C5 My Code GitHub. So if you click into that, you will find everything organized the exact same way I have it organized on my computer. So you can go right into week 3, right into day 3, and see all of the code that I wrote last night. I will try and update this at the end of every night. So if you have any, if you want to reference the code after we close out of the live share, this is totally the way to do it. Sorry, I'm just getting a couple messages. Okay, sorry. Let's dive into the terms here. So I am going to head to the terms list. I am going to click on week 3 to jump down here, and we've got a lot of terms that we've already covered in here. I'm not going to go step by step through every one of them because I hate it when everyone when teachers read off the screen where you can clearly read anything. So take a minute to go through all of these terms, or just read the kind of the first definition of it, the first word in the definition, and see if there is anything else on this list that we've used throughout the week that you really could use a definition on and that we can add to. And if there are any terms, you can throw them in the chat or just come off mute and I can add them. And it doesn't have to be like a single word as well. If there's a concept that you've heard me talk about or some phrase that you may have seen, that's totally fine. We can add that to the list as well.
So did you send the images too for the MaxFlix, or it just
They're in the daily outline.
daily outline? Okay.
Any other terms on this list that we didn't capture? I would recommend as we're going, if there are terms that pop up throughout the week, feel free to kind of jot them down, have a paper or have a running Google Doc where you can just throw them in. And then we'll do this at the end of every week just to make sure this list is staying up to date. The list is linked in Canvas. So if you head back over to Canvas under the general resources, there is towards the bottom, it says terms list. And then right above that is the new link where you can access all the code that we've written in class after class ends. So those are the two. And then are there any terms in here that you guys just want to hear me kind of talk through or redefine?
In what context did we use the dry and kiss?
Yeah, we didn't cover KISS. KISS is always one of my favorite. Keep it simple, stupid. There are some other variations of that, but keep it simple, stupid is the most common that I have seen. And that is saying, hey, if there's an easier way to do this, don't overcomplicate it. Code is kind of complicated enough. And so if there is a simpler way to achieve it, chances are it is a better way to achieve it. We will be running into that certainly as we get into more full stack code and JavaScript and that kind of stuff. But KISS is one of my favorite terms, even though we haven't used it in class yet. It will certainly be coming up. Dry, don't repeat yourself. We did use in the context of, hey, we wanted that hover button, right? We wanted that effect where if we hovered over something in our HTML, we got that like gray circle around it. Well, instead of applying that hover and writing out a separate ID for each button that we wanted to use it on, instead we made one class called hover button, and then we applied that to multiple places. If we didn't do that, we would have been repeating our code and adding it manually to every place that we wanted that effect instead of being able to reuse the code. So when we say you need to dry out your code, that means we've got a hunk of code, whether it's CSS, HTML, even our JavaScript, right, that we're repeating over, that's doing the exact same thing in two or more places. And so when we say dry out your code, we go in and we basically refactor it. We say, hey, how can we make this chunk of code that's repeated in two places reusable? And because it's reusable, it makes it easier to put it in multiple places without duplicating that code. There was one other one that was added. Palash threw out the HTTP equiv XUA compatible. I'm gonna find where my meta tag is, and I'm gonna add that under it. There are two that I'm gonna add here. One is saying make your website more compatible for legacy browsers. Like Internet Explorer and Edge. And then the other one is the meta viewport. And that is telling the browser that your site should be mobile responsive, and to provide the width of the viewport information to our CSS. Women in Code is the acronym that I see for WIC. No chance that you were thinking of WIP instead of WIC. WIP is normally work in progress. And that is kind of a way to say, hey, I might want to save my code or check it in, or, you know, I'm not fully finished with this yet, but I am WIP, work in progress. Eva, what's up?
So you mentioned Internet Explorer, but I think it's having a kind of a moment because of Chat GPT. So like it's kind of surging again, oddly enough.
Microsoft might be, not Internet Explorer.
I think that they kind of did, because I was in SEO, I do SEO, so I kind of follow that part, but but they did have a bit of a thing with chat GPT versus, I think Google was a little bit behind with Bard, but anyway, it doesn't
Sure.
matter for this.
Well,
purpose.
but it's important to separate out Internet Explorer and Microsoft aren't quite the same thing, right? Microsoft, who made Internet Explorer back in the day,
Right.
is surging because they invested in OpenAI, who makes ChatGPT.
Right.
That doesn't mean that Internet Explorer is surging.
But didn't they incorporate it into Internet Explorer? I haven't used it in so long.
Internet Explorer hasn't had any updates released to it since Microsoft
so
pulled the plug last
didn't
year.
incorporate chat GPT in it, upgrade it. Okay. All right.
No.
Thank you.
Bing, however, Bing, which is Microsoft's
Bing,
search engine,
yes, that's
is
what I'm
now
actually
using
thinking.
ChatGPT. Yeah.
Yes. That's probably what I'm thinking of.
Yeah, and Edge, I think, I haven't played around with either of them. I've certainly played around with ChatGPT, but I have not played around with Edge and Bing's new ChatGPT integration. Or it may be OpenAI. It might not actually be the language model directly. But yes, Microsoft is integrating in with them, and Google's had Bard going on and all of that stuff. Yeah. Okay, any other terms that I should add to this list? You guys are making me want to go make a tea now. Okay, then let's just dive right on into Netflix. So again, in this daily outline, if you guys want to pop this up so you have it open, this is what we will be trying to recreate. We will also need to download the image assets as well. So these are just a bunch of images that I've already collected together so that we can use them directly. If you go ahead and pop that link open from the daily outline, I will also drop the image link in the chat here. You may be tempted to click into this folder. Don't, just hit the download button in the top right. And we will be coming back to that in a minute once we get our file set up. But you should have that zip file down in your downloads. And if you want to pop it open to unzip it, that would also be helpful.
Oh, why there's so many photos? You want a carousel, mate? Like, you know.
So we want to recreate this look. If you want additional practice, you can actually do multiple rows of images,
Oh,
but
okay.
you should have at least one row of images down at the bottom.
With 6 pictures. All right.
Yep. Yeah. And this I think this is called headline. I forget what I called that image. But there are a couple other like icons and the MaxFlix logo and stuff like that. That's all in that zip file. You certainly don't need to use all of those images. But if you want that kind of real thing where you can see everything, that's totally fine. Okay, so let's dive into our file creation. I'm going to head to Finder. I'm going to go to my week, my code, my week 3. I'm going to make my day 4. And I am going to get in the habit of naming these days with the project that we're working on, only so it's a little bit easier to kind of go through the code and get access to it all. I'm going to take my day 4 folder and drag it into VS Code. Once I get it in VS Code, I'm going to create 2 new files, my index.html and my style.css. Hopefully none of those are surprising. I'm going to head back over to my index.html. I'm going to do my exclamation point enter and get my HTML template in using Emmet. I'm going to update my title to say MaxFlix here. And then I will drop a link to the, oh, let me do that in a different order. You can go live first. And now that I'm live, I can share and paste. You may notice if you want to pop open my version of code, instead of it saying localhost 5601, it says live server instead. That is under the shared server section, just like the local host is. So if you want to pop that open, you can join me, join that live share, remember file, new window, and then always join with the icon on the left, not with the icon down at the bottom. If you want to pop open my live server so you can see my code, that is totally fine. And then we're going to do the same steps that we've been doing for a little bit now. We want to get Bootstrap. So we're going to go to getbootstrap.com. We're going to click on read the docs. We're going to go down to include Bootstrap CSS and JavaScript. Going to highlight the link tag, copy it, head back over to my head tag and paste it. And I also need to link in my style sheet. So I am going to do my link with an href of style.css and a rel of style sheet. Oops, style sheet. There we go. And save. And I'm going to go down into the body and just make h1 of hello world. Then I'm going to grab my style.css, drag it to the bottom half of my screen, and target my h1 and make the background color on that h1 fuchsia, just to make sure that our two files are linked together. I'm going to go back to my Go Live server. I see it in pink, and I'm all set up and good to go start working on stuff. So give everyone just a quick minute there to catch up. Again, we should have our hello world with a nice pink background behind it. That's just making sure, and we should make sure our hello world is not in Times New Roman. This hello world should be in, I think it's Arial font or Helvetica, I can't remember, but should not be in Times New Roman. And that is showing us that our Bootstrap is properly linked in. So we created our index, our style. We added an h1 background fuchsia. We added in our link style sheet to our code. We also added in the link to the Bootstrap code. We went live to make sure we've got our background, and then joining the live share if you haven't already. Anyone need an extra minute or need any help? One thing that I will add is that we do have an outline already made. So this is going to be very similar to the exercise that we do when we kind of draw the boxes over everything. However, this is a text way of thinking about it, right? So instead of thinking about it all as those boxes that have boxes inside of it, sometimes it's easier to, and this is totally personal preference, easier to understand it if you get it into an indented layout, because that indented layout is much closer to our actual HTML code than it is to sometimes seeing it visually for people. Everyone goes about this a little different. So if you are someone who is likes to outline and likes to think about levels of indentation, I did add this link. Actually, Ariel added this link to the daily outline for today under resources. So depending on how you like to follow along, I would recommend either having this mock-up file open to reference visually, which is what I will be doing. But if you are someone who follows along kind of more at a higher level or a text-based layer, you can totally open this and reference this as we go. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and dive right on in. So the first thing that I notice, let me close out some of these extra tabs here. The first thing that I notice is that I got my MaxFlix logo at the top, but that isn't where we start. We start with, hey, is this a container that has space on the side of the screen, or is this something that's fluid, that ripples out, that flows out to the very edges of the screen? And I'm looking at this, and not only is our nav bar flowing out to the edges of the screen, but all of the content is. So to deal with that, I'm going to head back over. I'm going to delete out my hello world because I know everything's linked up together. I'm going to delete out whatever I had in my style.css because I don't need that fuchsia background anymore. And I'm going to do a div with a class name of container fluid. So it's full width. And then the other thing that I noticed is my background is black. Netflix has a dark theme for their website, right? And even the backgrounds of all the other rows is black. The only thing that is not is this image, and we're going to deal with that background image in a second. So I am going to target not only my container fluid, I'm going to target the entire body, and I'm going to tell the body, hey, the background color should be black. I save, I come back over to my page, and I've got a big black area. The problem that I run into is that if I add some text in here, you don't have to follow me, we get hello, but it's very hard to see because that text is almost black. Well, if I go back and I look at my website, all of the text released in the past year, new and popular, all of that is white. So while I'm at it, while I set my background to black, I might as well set the color of all of the text to white as well. So I save, I come back over here. I've got my hello now showing up in white, and I'm feeling pretty good about that. So I'm going to take this out and dive right on in. So I'm looking at my bar here, and I'm already seeing some columns form, right? I need my logo in, and my logo is going to be the smallest of all of them. So I'm going to drop that in. And then this is actually the second smallest. So I'm going to need some room for that. But theoretically, there could be more links added to the top here, right? While Netflix changes their update. So I'm going to leave this one be the biggest area. I'm going to have this one be the smallest area. And then I'm going to have this one be the Goldilocks in the middle. So I'm going to get started. Remember, we can't use a column unless we first use our row. So I'm going to throw in my div class row. And if you're using Emmet with those keyboard shortcuts with the period, typing in the class name and hitting enter, that's totally fine. So I get my row in there and I said, hey, I want a div class of col1 for my logo. So I save that and I go, where's my logo? That logo is hiding out in my image folder. So it's important to note here that if you've got the img.zip, go ahead and click on that to open up the folder to unzip the file. And then once you see this folder, take this folder and drag the whole folder right into your VS Code. You're going to get the option to add folder to workspace, which may sound like the right thing to do. Do not fall for that trap. You do not want to click on the workspace button. You want to copy the whole folder from your downloads into our D4 MaxFlix folder. So you want the copy folder option. Once you copy that in, you should see the IMG folder has now appeared. And to open that folder, we click on the little drop down. And inside of it, I've got a ton of different files. So I see my logo.png. If I open that, I see my little MaxFlix logo. So I'm feeling pretty good about that. I'm going to come down here, add in my IMG src of my MaxFlix. And it's important to match the file extension. So I'm going to say, sorry, it's not MaxFlix. It's logo.png. Go ahead and close that out. I come back over to my MaxFlix site and I've got a broken image. Danny, I'm going to come to you in 1 second. Why do I have a broken image here? Because my logo.png is right here.
Inside the folder.
It's inside my IMG folder. And that's very common, right? Sometimes you have a site with hundreds of different pages and you want to keep your images in a separate place. So that is totally fine to do it. But when we add in the path to logo.png, we need to tell it that it is inside the IMG folder. And the way that we tell it is inside a folder is we add a slash. So every different layer of folders that we go through, we're going to have another slash added to the path. Because my logo is inside the IMG folder, I just say img/logo.png, and now I get my MaxFlix showing up in the browser. So we're going to go ahead and take a break there. Danny, what's going on?
I need help. I don't understand what I did wrong.
Okay. Go ahead and share your screen. Let's take a look. Okay, we are. Did you hit the workspace button by any chance?
I have no clue. I went to hit, drag the folder and I said I trusted it and this is what happened. So I have no clue what I did. I'll be honest.
Okay. So I'm going to cancel you out of this. This is, it looks like you opened the IMG folder instead of trying to add the IMG folder in. So I'm going to take you back to your day 4 code.
Okay.
I'm going to pop this open. Then I'm going to try and full screen might make this a little tricky, but let's see. If I'm going to go to your downloads, I'm going to take your IMG folder, take that whole thing, go back to your VS Code and drag it into the sidebar right here. And now I'm going to pick copy folder, and that's got it in the right spot. So all you need to do is add your IMG tag right in there and you'll be good to go.
All right. Thank you so much, Max.
Yeah, no problem. And if anyone else is stuck or does not have the IMG folder next to their index.html and style.css in their sidebar, just go ahead and raise your hand and we'll get you some help.
Max, I just had a clarifying question.
Yeah.
You said that we added the IMG with the what is that, a slash or what is that?
Yep, a slash.
So we added that in front of it because it's in a folder.
Correct. And so if it were 2 folders and the file name, it would be folder name 1 / folder name 2 / image.file extension. And I'm just catching up on the chat. I saw the text layout on the Google Docs helps you. That's great. And that can be used in tandem. So if you say, hey, I'm a prepper, right? I really like to have everything planned before I write a line of code. You may want to take your mockup, go into preview and draw all the boxes. And then once you've got all the boxes, use that to make your text outline. And once you've got your text outline made, then you can get into your code, right? No, you guys are getting your feet wet, right? You're still chugging up to speed here. So whatever tool works for you, that is totally fine. Does anyone need help getting the logo to show up? Ariel, if you don't mind, there is a link in the cohort 4 outlines to generate a MaxFlix logo. Could you throw that onto the cohort 5 outline?
Yeah, if you give me a minute, I can find it and pull it up.
Cool, thanks. If you're curious of how I made this MaxFlix, there's a free tool that you can literally type whatever words in that you want, and it will like recreate it as the Netflix logo. So if you want to generate your own, that will be in the daily outline in just a second. Okay, we're gonna keep going here. So I'm looking at this and I'm like, if this is a col 1, we're in trouble because this looks way bigger than 1/12 of my nav bar. To check that, I'm not sharing my screen. I'm going to right click on my MaxFlix and I'm going to go to inspect. And if I hover over the IMG, I get a blue box over, or, you know, where I think it would be, right? But if I go up to the col 1, you notice my col 1 is a lot smaller. What do we need to do to make this IMG fit inside the col 1?
Fluid.
Image fluid. So we're going to come back over. We're going to say class equals image fluid. And we are basically saying, hey, your glass is a col 1. The fluid that we're putting in the image should not be spilling out, only be in the bounds of that initial col 1. So I threw that col 1 in there, and all of a sudden my MaxFlix is looking a lot better sized. Okay, so I'm feeling good about that. I'm going to come back over to my page, and I don't really know the size of these columns. I know this one's really tiny, and I know this one is going to have some text end on it, but I'm not really knowing what I'm going to do with these yet. So for now, I'm going to make sure I'm going to realize I'm getting some div soup that's cooking up here, right? We don't like our div soup. It's simmering a little too hard. So I'm going to add in some comments. I think I'm going to add in some comments that says end of col for logo. And this is the end of my row for navbar. And because of that, I know my next column is going to come in here. And I'm not going to specify a size on that quite yet. I'm just going to make that a col, and I'll come back to sizing it later. Now, what trick do we know that we can use in here to get our links in, but still have control over the spacing? What HTML element do I want to use?
The span.
A span, right? I want it to be in line. I don't want to push the page down. I want to just go across. And my links are going to be home, TV shows, movies, and new and popular. So I save that. I come back over to my browser, and they're all right next to each other, and they're all right at the top of the screen. So I want to target those, but I don't want to have to add a class to each one of these. So instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add an ID to this called links bar. Watch your casing here. I've got a capital B here, so I need to use a capital B in my CSS. And what I'm going to add to my links bar is a little margin on the left to push them away from each other, little margin on the right also to push them away from each other so they still stay centered and contained right. I'm going to save that. And the only other thing that I want to do is I'm noticing my logo is right at the top of the screen, right? And I want the entire bar to have some breathing room like it has over here. So instead of adding margin or padding to each element of this nav bar, I instead want to add that to everything, because that would be breaking that dry rule, right? If we do, if we added padding or margin to every single item in that bar, we would be repeating ourselves. But if we just add it to the div that's containing that entire nav bar, we only do that once. We don't repeat ourselves. We aren't breaking that rule. So I'm going to come up to my div class row, and I'm also going to add an ID onto that called nav. I'm going to head back to my CSS, target my nav ID, and add some padding of 5px, because I want that padding on the top. I want that padding on the left side, on the right side, and on the bottom. So I save. And I save my style.css, and I've got a problem. My margin left and right, that still looks like they are all on top of each other. Can anyone?
You try putting the outside?
Oh, yeah, go for it.
You have tried. Yeah, you could probably put span after the links bar, and that should probably fix it.
That is exactly the problem. I added margin to the column right here. So what did that do? It added more space right here, but not the space in between each one of the words. I didn't want to add space to the column. I wanted to add space to the spans inside the column. So I save that, I come back over here, and just like that, I've got it in the right spot. And it looks like those are just a smidge further down. I'm curious if I shrink this. I'm going to leave it as is, because you notice as I shrink my page, my MaxFlix logo gets a little smaller and that text starts to line up. So for now, I'm going to leave them aligned as they are. We can always go back and play with margin and padding and all of that stuff. So I'm going to take a breather here. You should have your MaxFlix in. You should have a little space between the words. You should have your black background, and you shouldn't have any text kind of down here hanging out or dangling. So I'm going to give everyone just a breather in case they need to catch up. And I am going to launch a poll on that just to see where you guys are at. If you do have it working, remember, go back through, make sure you understand everything. If you have any questions, now's a great time to ask them.
So,
Hey, what's up?
can I share for a second, because I'm not sure why mine's is not like my home TV. It looks like it's on top of my Max a little bit. And I'm not
Before you share, check your IMG tag. Do you have your IMG image fluid?
Yes. Oh, thank you.
No problem.
So image all the way out. That was it.
That will do it. Shay, what's up?
So I know we use the class image fluid for the PNG to fit within the call. I forgot the reason why we use container fluid.
We use container fluid because we want the container to be the full width of the page. If we wanted some effect like, let me just pull up New York Times. So, oh, it's not what I meant to pull up, but this is still the same thing. You see how this content is kind of centered in the page and it's not going all the way to the edge of the page? This is what a typical container would look like, where if you get down to a certain screen size, it looks like it's full width, but when you get above a certain window size, it starts adding space on the left and right to keep all of the content kind of contained in the center. That's a normal container. We use container fluid because we wanted it to be more like, that's not a good example. We wanted it to be more like Netflix, where it goes all the way to the edges of the screen.
Okay, so I think I get it. It's basically no matter the size of the screen, you just want it to be flexible, so it's always fit in the entire screen.
Correct. And normally when we have very text-based websites, we have it contained in the center of the screen because it's much easier for your eye to, when it gets to the end of the line, to go only back halfway and keep reading the next line, as opposed to going from the right side of your monitor all the way back over to the left side of your monitor. So for like news sites or anything that has a lot of text, you'll notice that it uses a container, but for anything video-based or image-based, you'll notice that it goes full width.
Okay, thank you.
Does that make any sense with reading a paragraph? It just basically means when you get to the next line, your eyes don't have to go quite as far over to the other side.
Yeah,
of your
so you're
monitor.
not dragging through the entire side of the screen. It's contained within the same perspective which you was looking at. Yeah, I understood.
Perfect. Yes, that's what I was trying to say. Glad you got it. Palash, what's up?
So when we shrink our screens, the logo shrinks really, but the font size of home, TV, and all that that doesn't. So
Correct.
is there a way around it, or is it because we have not added a call 9 and it's just call right now? Similarly, like if we add a padding of say 40 pixels, for example, to the top nav bar, and on the mobile 40 pixels stays 40 pixels, right? Or does it shrink as well?
It stays 40 pixels. Pixels are not a relative unit. They're I forget what the opposite of a relative unit is, maybe a fixed unit. So 40 pixels will always be 40 pixels no matter what device you're on. So that won't change. If we didn't want our logo to kind of grow, we wouldn't want to use the grid system here. We would probably want to do something more with Flexbox. And I think if you look at Netflix site, Flexbox is how you would pull that off. We're taking the grid approach only because that's a little bit easier. And then when we get to our portfolio site, we'll learn how we can use the responsive breakpoints in the grid system to make certain columns show or hide or become larger or smaller based off of what screen size that we're working on. So we won't dive into it too much here, but if you wanted to, you could certainly use Flexbox here and make the image, the Netflix image, a static site. I'm sorry, a static size, or you could also use @media queries, which we will learn how to use an @media query at the very end of this project before we go into portfolio.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah, static, absolute, fixed, relative. Those are all kind of in that same family. But there are units that are relative to the screen size, like REMs, and I'm blanking on one other one. We don't do a deep dive into those, but they certainly exist. Okay, sorry, I'm just noticing in the poll that you guys are all caught up. Any final questions on this before we keep going?
Yes, I need help with the image part.
Sure, share your screen. I really should have the TA count the number of times I say share your screen in a cohort, see if I make it to 10,000.
The amount of times we have to tell you you're not sharing your screen, make up for that.
Oh, I'm sorry, you can't share your screen until I stop mine. There you go. Okay, so the first thing I noticed, well, two things. One, we don't have our IMG folder over here. It's still in downloads. The other thing that I noticed is we've got red in here because we've got our source tag, but we don't close out this tag right here. So let's go ahead and fix that. I'm going to request remote. And I'm going to actually slide us over here and see if in your downloads folder, come on, give me the doc. There we go. You actually don't have a downloads folder in your doc. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop open Finder, go to your downloads and move the downloads into your doc so that you can reference and access files in there a little bit easier. And it doesn't look like you've got the images downloaded. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to head to Chrome, which is on your other monitor. Let me see. Is Safari, are you signed into Canvas on Safari or Chrome?
Oh yeah, she's trying to talk, but we can't hear her.
I don't unmute. Oh, I'm assigned on the other monitor.
Can you drag that other window into this monitor?
Okay, let's see. I hate this dragon business. Okay, let's see. I don't know, it never wants to go with me.
If you're in full screen, it might help to exit full screen and then
Yeah.
drag it over.
Okay, I'll do that.
There you go. That is the very reason why I don't like full screen, is because it doesn't, I don't know, drives me crazy. Okay, daily outline. I'm going to pop open this here and go to the weather. Is this an old? Yeah, that was a very old version. Okay, sorry. We're going to go to MaxFlix.
Mhm.
We are going to go to the MaxFlix image assets.
Okay, that's the part I missed.
We're going to download those. Once they are downloaded, they're now going to show up in our dock, and we can pop open the image.zip. Now that we've got it, we can take this image and drag it into our sidebar, and then we're going to hit copy folder right here. Now that that folder is in there, we can close out our image tag. And because it's in a folder, we have to say img/, and then we can use the MaxFlix sorry, it's called logo.png.
So
And we
only
also,
specifically because it's in a folder, we're going to use the slash.
correct.
Okay.
So the name of the folder / and then whatever the file name is. And then the other thing that we need to add is a class on this of img fluid, so that it stays within the bounds of my col1. And because you've got prettier on, when I save that, it takes care of the spacing for me. So now I'm going to go, oh, it looks like you're not live. Let me hit go live.
I still have to do my styling.
Okay. Now, though, you've got your logo and you've got your links in place.
Okay.
So everything else should just be in your style.css, which you do have linked properly. So we can go from there.
Okay, thank you so much.
No problem. Anyone else need help?
How
Okay.
do you
Go ahead.
fill the image on the back page? I'm trying to kind of.
So you gotta wait, because I'm gonna cover all of that during class.
Okay.
And so you can either wait or yeah, I gotta go at the speed that most of the students are going at.
Okay, that's fine. I thought you guys were there.
Nope, that is actually the very next thing that we're getting to
Okay.
after we get the icons working. So we go into my MaxFlix. I've got this showing up, right? And I've got these icons over here. And I don't want to quite use emoji. What am I going to use? My material icons. So I'm going to do a Google search for material icons. I'm going to grab my first link. And if I click on any one of these icons, let's actually see. The first one I'm going for is the search icon. So I'll click on search. I do not fall for the trap of the variable icon font. I want to go down to the static icon font and copy that link. I'm going to head back over here up to my head, and I want my style.css to always be my last link. So I'm going to go underneath my bootstrap link, hit enter, and paste in my material icons link. Again, I did a Google search for material icons. I clicked on search. I scrolled down, do not take this variable icon font. I scrolled down to this static icon font, grab that one and hit copy. I am then going to grab the second one called inserting the icon, make sure my first link tag is in the right spot. I'm going to go down, and because this one's a col, I haven't quite figured out what my spacing is going to be for the rest of them. So I'm just going to do another div class col in here and paste in my search icon. So I hit save on that. I come back over to my MaxFlix and I get my search icon showing up. Again, Google for material icons, click on search, scroll down to static icon font, copy the link tag, head back over to your head and add in the link tag above your style.css. After your bootstrap is fine. Really anywhere in the head, as long as link.style.css is last. Then I'm going back to my span. I'm copying the icon. I'm coming back over to my HTML. I add in my other div class col after the end of links. And now I've got my icon in and my search icon. Anyone need help with a specific step there?
I would like some help.
Sure. You want to share your screen, or you want to let me know what step you want me to recover?
I'll share my screen.
Sure, go for it.
Okay.
Okay,
So-
so you've got, okay, all of that's looking good. Let me go ahead back to your code. Okay, so you've got the material symbols in. So all that you're missing, scroll down a little bit, is the only thing that we added in that you don't have so far is this div class col.
Okay, so right under here.
Be careful. Yep, right under there, you got it.
Okay.
And then you can just copy the span tag here, or if you go to the Google material icons, they give you that span that you can just copy and paste right in. Just scroll down a little bit more. And the span is right in here. Yeah, you got it.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
No problem. Always less further behind than you think you are. Anyone else need help? Anyone need a minute before we keep going? Okay, give everyone just one more minute.
Max, could you just put your screen back up?
Sure thing.
Thank you.
At this point, we start getting into so much code that it's you can't keep it all on the screen at once. And that's when that live share is going to be most helpful.
While we're waiting, can I ask a question?
Shoot.
Um, So the static icon font, that's always like, say if we use like if we were gonna use like the home button or something, we would always put it up there, right?
Correct.
So all the other little tool that we're gonna do, we're gonna put them up there.
We only need that link tag once, and then we can use any of the icon fonts. We can use any of the icons and not have to add additional link tags.
So so when we get ready to add the other ones, we'll just be doing the inserting the icon versus
Inserting the span, correct, just the icon, not the link up at the top. We do new links up at the top when we're installing like a new CSS framework like Bootstrap. We do links at the top when we're installing a new font. And so like with Google Fonts, we had 2 different fonts on yesterday's page. So we had to like modify that link tag up at the top to have both fonts in there. And then we also do that for icons because icons are weird. We kind of trick the browser into showing the icon by using the font. All right, I think we're going to keep going here because I want to get our background showing up before we go on break. So I save this, I come back over, and I've got 2 more icons up here, the bell and the person. So I'm going to get those in first, and then I'm going to shove those over to the right. So I'm going to do a search for bell up at the top here, get my notifications bell, copy the icon, come back over after my span of the search and paste that in. And I'm also going to get my profile icon. So I come back over here, I do a search for profile. If you like the circle one more or the group one more, it doesn't really matter which one you pick. I picked a count box, so I'm going to copy that one. Under inserting the icon, copy, head back over after the last span, paste. I save, I come over here, I look at my MaxFlix, and there are all of my icons, but they're on the left-hand side of the column. Now that's kind of hard to tell that looking at this right now, right? We're like, well, that just looks like it's in the middle of the page. How do I know that that's the left side of the column? How would I even know that I want it on the right side or the text end side? Well, if you hover over the column in our inspect, you can see exactly where this column starts and ends and where this column starts and ends, right? So I want this to be, the icons to be at the end of this column. So I'm going to come back over to my col and add my text dash end. So I save, I come back over here. Now all of my icons are on the right, but if I look, I've got a little bit more spacing between them. So let's add that spacing in. I'm going to add my ID on this of icon section, or let's just call it let's call it nav icons. That's a good name for it. Come down to my nav icons. And you know what? I'm noticing that this links bar span is going to be exactly the same as my nav icon span. So in an effort to not repeat myself, I'm going to come up here and say, hey, not just the links bar span, but the nav icons span should also have margin on the left and right of 5 pixels. So I save that, again, a comma, and then I reuse this whole section of code by telling it to not only apply to the links bar span, but also to the nav icon span as well. So I save that, I come over here, I've got my a little bit more spacing, and I am all set. So now I'm going to come back over to my browser, and this is where we start getting into some mobile responsiveness. If I start shrinking down this page here, I run into an issue. All of a sudden, my new and popular is pushing down onto the next line. And I definitely don't want that to happen because there's a lot more space over here. How do I know that? Well, if I come hover over this, you can see how much space my icons are taking up. I don't want my icons to take up that much space. So I'm going to play around with the column sizing to see if I can avoid that issue. So I'm going to come over here and say, all right, what's the smallest column that I can make without this pushing to the next row? So if I do a col 2, I run into an issue where all of the icons are stacked on top of each other. Well, that gave this enough space, but not enough space over here for the icons. So let's try a col 3. I do a col 3. Now I've got enough room for my icons and I've got enough room for my links up at the top. So if I take that and I drag that back open, now everything remains the same. And if I drag it way down, I still have room for my icons and my nav bar or my links. Sometimes you can get away with playing with column sizing, just making enough room in your white space to make it not wrap down onto those lines. So we'll be learning more about responsiveness in the portfolio project, but this is a quick way to say, hey, even out my columns so that the column that needs the most amount of space has that space. Make sense? All right, let's try and get this next section tackled. Obviously, this is going to be the most complicated section for us to tackle. Brandy, you look ready to kill someone. Do you need help?
Yes. I'm missing something, but I don't know what.
Share your screen.
Okay.
See, you don't even need to send up the bat signal. I've just got my spidey senses tingling when a student needs help. Okay, I like to start in the browser just to see what went wrong. So can you bring me over to the browser?
Sure. As soon as I figure out how. Oh, Jesus fucking Christ. This, I think.
Yep. Yeah, that's it.
Okay, cool.
Okay,
Yep.
so we've got a very big account box. I believe your problem is, take me back to your code.
Oh, Jesus.
Sorry. I believe your issue is account box should have an underscore, and I believe you have a dash.
Okay.
There you go.
Oh, all right. Yeah, that fixed it. Okay, but still, no. I'm still not done. You have 2 more lines than I do, and I don't know why. And I don't know if it's because I am missing something important or if it's just spacing thing.
Probably just a spacing thing. My prettier pushed my notifications down into 3 lines. My bell
that's
icon.
Probably why then.
So I wouldn't worry about the exact number of lines. And you'll find as class goes on more and more, the number of lines isn't a direct one-to-one correlation for if you're caught up or not.
I mean, fair. That's how I track it though.
No problem.
But yeah, okay. All right.
Sequota, did you have a question?
I realized what I did wrong, so I fixed it.
Good work. All right. Anyone else need a screen share moment before we get our image in?
It's nothing like crazy. I have everything in there. My font is just always like tiny though.
You can try clicking into Chrome and hitting Command 0 to see if it's a zoom issue. That will reset your zoom back to 100%. Do you happen to be on like a 4K monitor?
Yep, never mind. That was all. All right, thank you.
No problem. That is a common problem that you have as a developer. You're zooming in and out, and then you forget to reset your zoom. So that Command 0, I always had to hit Command plus a bunch of times and then minus to get it back. And then someone was like, dumbass, you can just hit Command 0 and it goes back to 100%. I'm like, why didn't I know that? Allie, what's up?
So my prettier is not like auto save. It's not automatically spacing, which I mean, it's not really a big deal for me, but I'm trying to figure out why.
Do you have a red area in your prettier, or do you have a check mark at the bottom right next to prettier?
Check mark.
Okay, so then it's just a settings issue. So the two things that you want to have set, if you are in VS Code and like your cursor's in there, hit Command minus to open up, I'm sorry, Command comma to open up settings. And by the way, this goes for everyone. If you're prettier, it doesn't automatically run, doesn't automatically fix your indentation. Command comma, there are two things that you want to have set. If you do a search for default formatter, it should be set to prettier.
Oh, okay. Prettier. Okay.
It's like 6 down in the list, I think. And then the other thing that you want to do, clear out the search and do a search for format on save. And then make sure that is checked off.
Okay, and then it just automatically like updates the settings as you go along. Okay.
Yep, whenever you save, it will automatically update your formatting. And this applies for all your projects, so you don't need to like do it on each individual one.
No, I mean like for so like when you change settings in VS Code, like you don't have to press like a save settings button or
No.
anything, right?
Nope,
Okay.
nope, just live updates. And then if
Thank
you go
you.
back to your file and add in the change and save it, prettier should snap right in. Cool. Okay, last thing we're going to cover, because we're close to break time. I'm looking at what I'm shooting for, right? And what would be our first gut? How would we get that image to show up? We'd use an image tag, right? And our SRC and all of that. But we've never really done this before. We've never had something on top of our image. So the beginner's approach to this would say, we'll add in the image tag, get our image to show up the sizing that we want, and then take all of this stuff and either use negative margin or fixed positioning and give it pixels to get it specifically in that space. That, however, is a terrible idea because we run into mobile responsiveness issues, or if we use negative margin, the content coming after it now also needs negative margin, and we get into this shit show, for lack of a better term. So what we're going to do instead is, Brandy beat me to the punch there, and Allie did as well. We're going to treat this as a background image. Background images are better when we are dealing with an image that can scale up or down, or we're working with anything that has text on top of it. That's not to say that you couldn't pull this off with an IMG tag and then playing around with your CSS to get things positioned correctly, but a background image is certainly the better approach to use here. So what we're going to do is we come down here. I've got more div soup that I need to clean up. So I'm going to say, I'm going to click on this div. This is the end of my nav icons. This div, I'm going to go all the way up, is the end of my row nav, which I have annotated here. That means that hopefully this div, if I scroll up, is the end of my container. I still want it inside my container. So I scroll down to this last closing div. I make my div class of row, because I know I'm going to be using my grid system, and I'm going to add an ID to my row, and let's call this headline content. So I save that, and now I want to use my background image. My background image, because it's a styling thing, doesn't go in my HTML. I'm going to scroll down here to my headline content, and I'm going to use my background image. Now, background image is kind of unique. It uses the URL value in our HTML. And just like our images in our SRC tag, we've got to tell it it's inside the IMG and it's going to get cover.jpg. So I save, I come back over to my browser. Where's my background image? Does anyone have a guess as to why the background image isn't showing up?
Is it behind the black background?
It isn't. It's a good guess, but it isn't. We don't have any content inside our headline content yet. So if I just add a H1 that says hello, I get my hello and I get these trees in the background. I'm like, wait a second, those trees look familiar. I'm going to go open up my cover image. Look what we're getting. We're getting those trees. Well, this is a problem because I have this space in here, but I don't want to have to load up all of this content and then come back in and work with getting my image to be the right size. But I also don't want to reach for the height property directly, because if this content ends up being too big, I want the height to push out. I want that image to kind of scale based off of the size of the content that I've got going on over here. To pull that off, I'm going to set a min height of 550 pixels. That's going to say, hey, I want at least 550 pixels of this headline content, but if the content ends up getting more in there, I want to make that height bigger. I want to expand it out. So I'm going to save that. I'm going to come back over to my MaxFlix, and now not only do I have that image in there, but when I scale it, now I've got two images. This image wasn't big enough to get over to cover everything. That's okay. We'll fix that when we come back. What we're going to do right now, as long as you've got your image showing up, you are all caught up. And your monitor, your laptop monitor might not be big enough to expand this to see this other image. But if you drag it over to your external monitor and drag it over, you'll see this issue that we're running into where the image is repeating itself. That's not quite what we want, but if you've got your image in here, you can take out your H1 hello and you can go on break. I will stick around for 2 minutes just in case anyone needs any help. But once you get your image showing up, go on break, be back at 7:25.
Hey, Max.
Yes.
I have a quick question. So the YouTube that we went through yesterday, is that a mandatory thing that we have to have done?
No, it is not.
Okay. All right, thanks.
No problem. This homework assignment isn't something, this Netflix isn't something that you have to have done either. But it will certainly be good practice. These are our final 2 projects that we're doing in class.
Okay, cool. I'll still get them done and send over once I get done.
Cool.
All right, thank you.
Mhm.
All right.
All right, I'm going to go on break. I will see you guys in a couple minutes.
But can I share my screen?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, so you're missing your images. Um. Um. Huh. Interesting.
Yeah, so you remember how it was a double screen, right? I caught myself playing around with it a little bit, right? To try to see if I can do it, right? So when I did that and then deleted what I put in there, I started to get this little error right here on my image. Oh, you have it? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm just checking if your Go Live server isn't running, it may not work, but I restarted it and it's there.
Mhm.
Oh, that's not normal.
Yeah, and I'm like, remember yesterday I put YouTube.html. Could it be that, and probably not, but that I named my folder D4W week 3, perhaps?
Well, it looks like something went wrong with the download because I can't even open these images in Finder. So it looks like this somehow went corrupt. So I'm
Okay.
actually going to delete that out and go to your downloads and the IMG zip.
Mhm.
And I'm not seeing that either. So what I'm going to do is head back to, hopefully this is the outline. Yep. Oh, and I think I just closed it accidentally.
Now the image was originally showing, but maybe I just need to re-download it.
Yeah, that's what I'm gonna do just to play it safe.
Yeah.
So let me go to MaxFlix to our image assets and just make sure when you're downloading it, you're using this download icon up at the top. I don't know how you could have had a corrupt download though, and then not have it unzip properly, which is, it's kind of weird, but now you'll see all the images are actually showing up here. So if we take this whole IMG folder and we bring it over to your code, which I think you have in another space, maybe not. Nope. Okay, let me get that back up then. VS Code. This is the right one. Yeah. Okay, so let me grab this. Let me drag this over. We hit the add folder option or the copy folder. And now when we go back to there, you've got your logo and you're good to go. Were you also expecting your background image to show up? Are you caught up on that?
Yeah, I was. 'Cause it was
Headline
showing originally.
content, image, cover. Let me stop this and go back to your code. Image, cover.jpg, img, cover.jpg. Stop, restart. There you go. So you're good to go. Just needed the live server to
That's
restart.
how it was. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, I have no idea how you managed to do that, but it's fixed now, so that's all that really matters. All right, anyone else need help?
I do. My picture is not coming up.
Okay, share screen. Okay, you've got your headline content. Now, the first thing that I notice is that you've got a lowercase c in your content. That isn't a problem as long as if you switch over your style.css, check to see what you've got there. Ah, you've got a capital C there. So you either need a lowercase in one or a capital in the other. Save and see if that fixes it.
Thank you.
No problem. Anyone else need help? Okay, we are going to keep on chugging along here. So we got our image in. I am going to head back to my MaxFlix, and now I've got this N series showing up. So the good news is I've got this Netflix N for you already in the image folder. But this word series, we're going to actually play around with a little bit and get that text styling to line up pretty similarly to what we've got in the screenshot. So I come into my row and I've got to figure some things out here because I've got this content over here. Then it looks like I've got a gap. And then I've got my other replay here. So what I'm thinking is this looks like it's almost half the screen, but not quite. So half the screen would be a col 6. I'm feeling like this is a col 5, which means we also probably have maybe a 5 here, which would leave this at a 2. So that's the approach that I'm going to take. Let's see if it works out. So I come back over here. I made my headline content. I'm going to do a new div class. It's going to be a col 5. And I know I'm going to need to style some of this, but let's just start here. I'm going to create a div, and I'm going to say this is the series row. Because every one of these is pushing the page down further, right? We're going down section by section. Now, why am I not making all of these rows? Well, because I don't need columns for every one of these. But when I get down to my play button and my more info button, I may want columns to tackle that. But for right now, I don't need a column to get my Netflix and my series to show up. So I'm going to say my series row, and I'm going to go find, I've got something called the Netflix N. If I pop that open, that's the little N that I want. I guess it should technically be a M for MaxFlix, but we'll roll with the N. Okay, so I'm coming in my series row. I'm going to do an IMG. I'm going to do my SRC. That is coming from my IMG folder. And I need to match the file name exactly. I'm going to go ahead and save that. I head back over to my MaxFlix, and I got a giant N, and that N isn't anywhere near where I want it to be down at the bottom. So what I'm going to do, first thing I'm going to do is look into the size of my Netflix N. That's just way too big. So I'm going to add an ID so I can target that. Actually, I don't even need the ID. We already put an ID on series row. Let's go ahead and use that. Go to the series row, use the IMG tag inside of it, and make the height of that image 25 pixels. Now that's nice and tiny. It's not in the right spot, but at least I have it sized about the same. And I want to push all of the content from here down. So I want to create this gap up here. Because I'm moving the entire element kind of relative to another element, I want to use margin. So I'm going to target my series row and use some margin on the top. Let's pick 150 pixels. And just like that, we've got our N pushed down to the right spot. Now, you've heard me warn you against using height before. Height is an okay property to use. I just don't like using it on content that can have variable heights. Because it's on an image, images tend to be an exception of when it's okay to use static heights or widths to get things sized the way we want. Images are an exception for me. Anyone need help getting their N tiny and push down? Danny, what's up?
Mine is showing like a broken thing.
Okay. Make sure you've got your IMG slash in your image path, and make sure it is a Netflix dash and not underscore N. Make sure your N is a capital N, and that you've got the .png.
Can I just share my screen and make sure
Yep.
it still looks like I do?
Go for it. You've got a Netflix.
Oh, that would be it. Thank you.
Anyone else need help? Or need a minute?
Max.
Yeah.
So my symbol, it's right under MaxFlix. The size is right, but it's just not in the right position.
Do you have your margin top on your series row in your CSS?
I do not. I copied the height twice. Thank you very much.
That will do it.
Okay, so now my prettier is red.
Oh.
And I don't know.
That is usually because make sure your IMG tag has a closing slash and your arrow, and then check all of your divs. We are now 1, 2, 3, 4 divs deep. And if you still can't find it, let me know.
Yeah, I don't. Here, I'm gonna just share.
Yeah, go for it. All right.
Oh, I think I see it's the, is it the call? Oh, wait.
We're 4 divs deep. I think you're missing one. Let's try this. Because Prettier will help us out if it can find all the closing divs. Sometimes the best approach is to come right before the end of the body and just do an arrow and a slash and see how it auto completed the div for me. Now I'm like, great, well, my indentation's still all screwed up. As soon as I hit save, Prettier now knows where all of the closing divs are, and it will do the right thing for me. So sometimes the right approach, if like you're close, it's an issue with the closing tags, is just give it a try, because if you do a slash here, now it's closing out the body, and we're like, whoa, we know we don't want the body closed. But that approach of doing just those 2 letters can be a helpful tip for having VS Code kind of help us out in figuring out what's missing.
All right, thank you so much, Max.
No problem. Anyone else need help?
Yeah, my N is not appearing.
Okay, share your screen. I think you just shared your browser window instead of all of desktop 1 or 2. Okay, that's better. IMG, Netflix, and PNG. Okay, so the first thing I notice is your Prettier is red, and that usually is because we're missing a closing div. So the same thing that I think Danny just ran into, we're going to try that approach. If you give me remote control. Thank you. The trick that we do here is we come down to the end and we just type an arrow in our closing slash and it auto completes for us. And then we test it out. So if I hit Command S, Prettier is now back to being happy. And then I like to, when we think everything is right, stop the live server and restart the live server. And that got your Netflix end back in. Anyone else need help? Okay, I'm gonna keep on going here. I totally forgot, and this happens when we take breaks. If I take my image here and I drag it over, we've got a repeating image, right? And we don't want that. So we are going to, I can never remember all the properties for background image. Like I'm lucky if I can get a background image URL to work without me having to look it up. All of the background sizing properties, totally beyond me. So I'm going to say background image, no repeat, W3 schools CSS. Sometimes literally that is the right answer. I'm going to click into this. And now I've got my background image. I'm like, all right, cool. I'm already using that. What else is down here? Oh, there's this background repeat, and this is repeat X, but I don't want it to repeat. So there's an option for no repeat. Let's try that. I'm going to copy this whole thing. I'm going to come back over to my code, and where I used my background image, which was in my headline content, I'm going to say background repeat, no repeat. So I come back over, I check out my image, and I'm like, well, it's not repeating, but now I've got this ugly black area in here. So I need to take a step back and think about what I want the image to do, because I don't want it to repeat, but I also don't want to have this black area back here. What am I really trying to do? I'm trying to get this image to cover my entire div. And if it needs to shrink up or down or crop things around, that's okay with me. I really want it to cover. So this background image repeat, we can set it to no repeat, but that isn't quite what I'm going for. I wish I could use fluid something, but those fluids only work for the images. So instead, what I'm really trying to do is, it's not quite the background repeat that I'm going for. It's almost the background image size that I'm going for. So I'm going to come back over here, and repeat didn't get us anything that I was looking for. So I'm going to go look at background image and see if I get anything over there. Background image. No, none of that's what I wanted. Oh, don't let me down. Okay, here we go. We've got a background position. That's kind of interesting. But what I'm really looking for is, all right, here are all of my CSS background properties. Size. That's interesting. Specifies the size of the background image. Let's click into that one. So I come down here. I think auto is what it's going to default to, but I want to know what my options are. So I come down here to the property values, resize the background image to cover the entire container, even if it has to stretch the image or cut a little bit off one of the edges. That actually sounds pretty cool. Let's see what that does. So I can leave my no repeat on. It shouldn't matter too much, though. If my image is sizing up and down, there won't be a chance for it to repeat. So I don't really need this. I'm going to comment it out just so I have it in my code in case I need to reference it later. For right now, I'm going to say background size. And if you'll notice, if I hit the colon, VS Code is helping me out, right? It's going to show me, if I do the colon, it's going to show me all the different options that I have. I'm going to try cover and see what happens there. So I save, I come back over to my code, and now the image is stretched out. And if I grab this and resize it, my background image kind of resizes as I go perfectly the way that I want. So it turns out background repeat not what I needed, but background size is what got that same effect that I was going for. And this hopefully is not a very intentionally planted proof that I need to read the documentation almost as much as you guys do, right? There's way too much to memorize everything here. And once you've made 100 different websites, you're going to have background size burned into your brain. But because I don't do a ton of front end work at my full-time job, background size happens to be something that I have to look up every time, and there's no shame in that. Kenny, quick comment out wherever your cursor is. If you hit Command and the slash, the question mark key right next to the shift on the right-hand side of the keyboard, that will comment something not only in, but if you hit that again, it will comment it. It will comment it out and back in for you, depending on if it's already commented in or out. All right, so I'm resizing my background. I'm feeling pretty good about that. I think we are good to move on. Does anyone need help? Okay, I'm going to keep going then. My next thing is I got to get the word series in here, and then I've got to get my Bridgerton font. So I'm going to figure out where I'm at. I put my IMG in there. So now I want to work with that series. So I'm just going to throw the word series in here. And because the font styling won't apply to an image anyway, I can actually target the word series by using the parent selector. If I had other text in here that I wanted to style, I'd have to use the span tag and add the ID to that and all of that good stuff. But because I am working directly on the word series and there's nothing else in here other than an image, I can just focus in on my series row. And so I'm looking at I've got my word series in here, it's showing up, but that is a far cry from the word series showing up in here. So first things first, I notice the color of that is gray. So I'm going to say, hey, in my series row, the color of the text is going to be, let's try for dark gray. And I'm looking at that. I save, I come back over here. Well, one is all capital and one's all lowercase. Well, or one's all capital and one is sentence case. Well, I could type in ERIES in all caps, but there's a cool CSS property called CSS transform, and look at what my options are. I can lowercase everything, I can uppercase everything, or I can capitalize so the first letter of every word is capitalized. I'm going to go for the uppercase option there. I save. Now I get it all in uppercase. That still isn't quite the effect that I'm going for. This compared to this, there's a little bit of font weight there. There's a little bit of bold, I think. So I'm going to come back over and I'm going to say, hey, my font weight, let's go for bold there. I'm going to save. Now I'm in bold. I'm feeling like I'm pretty close, but it isn't still quite the effect that I'm going for. I'm looking at this, and if I zoom in on it, why does that feel like it's actually a logo and not just text? I think it's the letter, the spacing between every letter. Well, I could go in and add in a space between every letter here, but I don't have a ton of control over that. So I'm going to say adjust spacing between letters CSS. Oh, isn't that convenient? There's something called letter spacing. And all I need to do is give it a pixel value and it will space it out for me. Well, that's convenient. That's true. I can use my letter spacing right here. And let's try for 5 pixels between every letter. I save. I come back over. Here's my ERIES. And I got my Netflix series showing up. Yes, it is very sad to know that it took us 30 minutes to get an image and the word series to look right, but now it's perfect. Sometimes that happens. Takes a little bit longer than expected sometimes. go take a minute, go read back through our CSS, make sure you understand all the properties, make sure you understand how it was affecting things, and use your command slash, which can be a really helpful tool. If I command slash this out, it's going to comment it out. When I hit save on that and come back over to my browser, you can see what it looks like. And that can be a really good way to comment things in and out and see what effect that's having on our HTML. We definitely have a case of div soup going on here. So before we get too far in, I'm going to leave myself some comments to combat that. So this is the end of my series row, and you'll see me click on this closing div. If computer's trying to help you out there, you might as well use that. This is the end of my left column for header headline image area. Let's say headline show area. Now I click on this div. This is closing out my row. End of row for headline show area. And then this one must be the end of my container. This is one of the only times that I disagree with Prettier. I like having those comments up on that line, but really depends. Prettier says no, those comments should be on the line right underneath them, which is okay. I think it's still helpful. Good question. So we chose 550 only because that felt like a good percentage of my screen. If we're looking at the mockup that we're recreating, it seems it's kind of hard to say. You don't know how big the user's browser window was, but 550 seemed to be a good height to say, hey, this has a good amount of the image in it and also leaves me space to get all of this other content in there. If you wanted to, you could definitely use VH. If you wanted to say, hey, I want this to take up 70% of the user's viewport height, you could use a 70 VH in here. And when you adjust the size of this window, the image will go with it. And then if there wasn't enough room for the content because we're using min height, it would still push it down and leave it room for the rest of the content. So you definitely could use VH there. It depends how responsive you want the image to be to the viewer's desktop area. We tend to only use VH when we are trying to say like this element should take up the whole screen or this item should take up the vast majority of the screen. But this is a total valid use case where, yeah, you could do pixels or you could do a VH. Either one would be totally fine and get the job done. You just want to use the min height there just in case our content pushes the content down. But yeah, viewport height is a total valid option there. All right, we good to go? Anyone need help?
I need
My
some more help.
series. Yeah, my series doesn't look like that either.
Okay, Shannon, I'll come to you, and then Sarah, I'll come to you next.
Yeah, my series is halfway between MaxFlix and G10.
Share your screen, let's take a look. Normally that gets into your div soup when things aren't showing up where we want them to. Well, that series certainly is not in the right spot. Okay, so okay, here's the problem. You added your margin top to your image directly right here. Oh, sorry. Because you added the margin to the image is in the right spot, but the word series isn't. So if you look at where I added my margin top right over here, I did it on the row directly, not on the image inside of the row. So just take out the word image here, and I bet you everything's going to be, oh, sorry. Get your cursor back in there. When I clear images, it moves your cursor off. Yeah, take out that IMG. There you go. Save that and see if that.
Okay.
Beautiful.
Thank you very much.
No problem. Sometimes it's more helpful to figure out what the browser thinks it should be doing and then figure out what you want it to be doing. Kind of work backwards from that and being like, well, if the image is in the right spot, why is my word series not in the right spot? Oh, it's because I positioned the word series, not the whole div that the series is in. Who else needed help? Sierra? Oh, perfect. See, that is proof. Paying attention to what your fellow students do to fix things can fix things for yourself. Okay, we good to keep going? All right. So next up, I'm looking at my word Bridgerton, and I'm looking at that and I'm going, all right, I could grab an image for that and use an image logo, but I'm going to have other shows that eventually rotate into this area, right? And I don't want to have to go generate or go find an image for every different show. I want to just be able to type in the show name and have it kind of go with all of these fonts. So I'm going to go look for a font on Google Fonts that looks similar to that one. So I'm going to go to fonts.google.com. And I am going to use my sentence up at the top here, and I'm going to type in Bridgerton. And I'm going to find a font that looks similar to the font Bridgerton. So I'm just going to scroll through here. Nothing's really jumping out at me. Let's see. I'm totally not going to cheat and use the one that I've used in the past. Oh, it's not even going to load in. Great. Well, there happens to be one that I know that looks close. This Red Hat actually isn't too far off, but the one that I know I've used in the past happens to be one called Cabin. So I'm going to do a search for that and get the Cabin font family that I'm looking for. I'm going to click on that to copy it or open it. I'm sorry, I shouldn't say copy it. And keep in mind here that Google Fonts really likes to hold on to whatever fonts you've used in the past. So over on the right here, I've got Roboto and Knit, and I don't want either of them. So I'm going to hit remove all and go into Knit and hit remove all. So I've got that cleared off. So I should be seeing this over here. Now, the font that I want to use is just going to be this regular 400. So I'm going to come over here and hit select regular 400. And now I get my big link tag that I can work with. So I'm going to copy that whole link tag. I'm going to head back over to my head section, and I'm going to put that above my material icons. Again, I clicked on the Cabin font. I clicked on select regular 400. I copied this link in the sidebar, making sure that Cabin was the only font showing up here. Then I'm coming down to my CSS rules. I'm going to copy that. And now I'm finally going to come down, battle my div soup and go, okay, this is the end of my series row, but where am I going for this content? This content is underneath the series, but it's still in this giant col 5 that I'm working with here. So I'm going to make sure this is the close of my col 5. That means I must be in here for my next div. And I'm going to go ahead and type in my Bridgerton in there. Then I'm going to add an ID onto that of show name. Head back over to my CSS and put in my show name And now I'm going to paste in that font family cabin that was coming in from my Google Fonts. So this section right here is I'm saying, hey, apply cabin to my show name ID. And while I'm at it, I'm going to make it big. Let's just say 56 pixels. I want to use my text shadow. And I'm sorry, not my text shadow, my font, my text transform. And I want to transform it to uppercase. So I save, I come back over. Now I've got my Bridgerton. The review box. You mean this box? Oh yeah, that is called the review box. Up in the top right here, it says view selected font families. You want to click on that little icon, and then that should slide this review out. And then make sure you clean out any of your other fonts before you add in cabin. Taking a break here, even though we only got one little thing added, because we're dealing with div soup, we're dealing with extra link tags, and we're dealing with a couple lines of CSS properties. Right? And it's so easy to get Bridgerton showing up over here and it's not in our column. Or it's easy to not get it in capitals, or it's easy to realize that Bridgerton isn't in that exact right font. And that could be an issue with your link tag, or that you forgot the font family, or the font family, you forgot quotes around it. There is so much that can go wrong here that we want to take a minute, debug it, and if it's not quite right, raise your hand. Anyone need help or a minute? Okay, one more minute and then we'll keep going here. One more property I'm going to add. Don't worry, it's not too much. Looking at Bridgerton here, I'm going to zoom in a little bit. This font looks like it's right on top of the image, right? It almost blends into the image. It's so right on top of it. If I come back over here and I zoom in on it, what do you notice about that font that makes it kind of pop out of the image?
Shadow.
There's a shadow on it. And text shadow is one of the most powerful ways to make your text not blend into an image. And it's really subtle, but your eye can immediately see the difference between the text and the background. Why? One word answer there, just a little bit of contrast. Because the shadow is a contrasting color to the font, even though it's that tiny little amount of color around it, that makes your eye really be able to read that word without feeling like it's blending right into the image. So we're going to go back to our show name and we're going to add one more property, text shadow. And text shadow takes 3 values. One is how many pixels to the right the shadow shows up. One is how many pixels to the bottom shows up. And then the last one is the shadow color. So I'm going to do 5px, 5px, and let's say gray, and let's see what happens. So I save that, I come back over. Okay, now we can see what our shadow is doing. That is certainly an effect that we're going for, but I'm looking for something a little bit more subtle. So let's try 2 pixels and 2 pixels. Okay, that's better. But that gray is really a little too much for me. So if I take that down to black and save it, wow, amazing what a little color contrast will do. that 2 pixels is still there. That black is still in that background, but as soon as I zoom back out to 0, doesn't look like a major change until I comment that out. And now we can really see that's really blending into the background as opposed to looking like it's popping out. Goggin, what's up?
Can you have a look at mine if it looks kind of good?
Go for it.
Hold on.
Beautiful. This is full credit. This is exactly what we're going for. Oh, your play in more info buttons need a little work.
I am
and
gonna
you're-
do that, but I just
Cool.
wanted to see if I was doing all right here.
Yep, everything looks right. The play in more info and then the restart and the rating over on the right hand side. And I think that's everything.
Wait, which one? Oh, okay, okay. The restart button and okay, got it.
Yeah. I think it's rating, isn't it?
I don't know what the hell is that.
Yeah, TAMA.
Wait, is that a logo or is it text?
It's text and the div is styled to get that like white bar to show up, and
Okay.
the restart button, I don't remember how I did that. I think I did the restart icon for material and then I did a border radius on that div.
Okay, I'll try to do it.
But you're definitely on the right track. This is all the guts. This is the important stuff that you got in place.
All
So
right.
good work.
I used the Flexbox most of it.
Oh, cool.
So center these on the top. You see the nav bar, how
Yep.
is it perfectly centered? That's what is Flexbox and grid kind of mixed.
Nice.
Thank you.
All right. Anyone need help before we keep going here? Okay. So looking back at what we've got our Bridgerton section in. Now we're rolling forward. We've got this top 10. The good news is I did provide that top 10 for you that as an image. And then we got number 2 in TV shows today. So I'm going to figure out where I'm at. I've got so many divs here. I really want to use my selection tool, right? So I'm going to select my div here. That's still inside my col 5. So I want to be working inside that col 5. That must mean I need another div in here. And while I'm at it, I'm going to add an ID on that. And that says number 2 in TV shows today. That to me is like the trending status, right? And from there, we're going to add in our IMG. I got to go find that. So I'm going to open this file. Here's the top 10 that I'm going for. So that's Netflix top 10 icon.png. So I'm going to say IMG SRC equals, go to my IMG folder and go find the Netflix. Why is it not auto completing for me? That's weird. Netflix top 10 icon.png. So I'm going to close out my image tag. I'm going to save. I'm going to head back over to my MaxFlix, and I got my top 10, but it's huge. So I want to fix that. I'm going to get my trending status ID. I'm going to take I need to target the IMG inside my trending status, and let's use a height of that of, actually use width for a change. Let's say the width of that is going to be 25 pixels. Remember, if you set width and height, it may distort the image because your ratios aren't right. But if you use either only width or only height, your aspect ratio is going to stay the way that it should. All right. I think I can keep going here. I'm going to say, hey, I also need the words #2 TV show in the US today. That shows up, but I'm looking at my screenshot. It's not quite right. Let's go ahead and style that out. That white text is really hard to read, right? On that, I think it's a pinkish dress, whitish dress. So to fix that, I'm going to target my trending status. This time, not the image, just the whole div. And let's make that font weight bold. Making anything bold always makes it a little bit easier to read. Let's add some text shadow on that. But this time, let's only do 1 pixel. Why? From a design perspective, this isn't quite as important, but we still want it to pop out. Go back to my screenshot, and I've got a little gap in there. So I'm going to say, hey, now I run into a problem. I've got my image here, and if I put a margin or padding on this, the whole thing is going to push over. So I could put this whole thing in a span, and then in my CSS, target that span. Does anyone have a more creative solution to other than using a span? Well, if we can push this over to the left, we could also use this and say, hey, add some margin on the right side of my image of, let's say, 10 pixels. I save, and now I got that gap in there. So sometimes it's easier to target the other item and make it push in the opposite direction than target the item that we're trying to move and push it in the direction that we're thinking. I think 20 pixels might be a little too much though. Let's try 10. That brings it over, and we've got our top 10 in. As a minute to catch up there.
Wait, so what did the solid do for text shadow?
Whoops. It broke my code and made the text shadow not actually show up. That was supposed to be black. Thank you.
Oh, okay.
I'm so used to whenever it's a 3 property CSS value, I'm used to doing 1px solid and then whatever the color is of the border, but I just totally spaced there. Goggin, what's up? Goggin, did you have a question?
Shit, I didn't even unmute myself. I was just talking to myself. You see, where's I found a typo, I think. I don't know if I'm right. The word it says Bridgerton family, I balk love, or is I look love?
Oh yeah, that's totally a typo. Whatever's in there is totally fine.
Okay.
As long as you got like 3.
I didn't know what the hell is I bulk.
Yeah, that's definitely it's supposed to be look, and I must have slipped on the keyboard.
Oh, that's fine. I just wanted to make sure, I was like, what the hell?
All right, let's finish this off as our last element, and then we will pick it up here on Monday. We got really, really good progress on all of this. So I would not be surprised if we have plenty of time to work on portfolio starting on next week. Danny, what's going on?
My top 10 is still big, and I don't know why.
So for my top 10, make sure that you've got your ID on the div above it. And then make sure, including the capital S, and then go into your CSS, make sure you've got that same exact one with the same capitalization. And then this CSS down here with my image width is specifically targeting the IMG, not the div itself.
Can I share my screen? Because I'm just not seeing it.
Yeah, go for it. Okay, I don't see any problems there. Can I see your index.html? You've got a trending Stouse.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Rain, what's up?
I started on my releases, the next row.
Yep.
And it wasn't aligning properly, but I just want to do one more thing before I share my screen with you and stuff, so.
Cool. All right, let's get our paragraph in and we'll call it a night here, and then I can help anyone who needs it.
No, it's still big. I don't get it.
Oh,
Oh, whoops, sorry.
it's fine. Share a screen. Let's get it fixed. I know you didn't know you were unmuted, but I still want to get it fixed. Trending status, IMG source. And it's just big in the browser.
Yeah.
Stop your live server and restart it. See if it's still huge.
Oh, now it's fixed.
There you go.
Thank you.
No problem. Yeah, sometimes live server isn't as live as it says it should be. Okay. Get our paragraph in here, call it a night. So I got my trending status. I still got a 10 on divs. I'm going to click on this closing div and make sure I'm still in my col 5, which I am. So I'm going to come down here. And I don't even need a div. For this, it's just going to be text. That's a paragraph of text. So if I were doing something that required a lot of styling, I'd use a div. But because this is a true paragraph, a p tag is going to be more helpful than the div itself. I wonder, I think there's a shortcut, lorem ipsum VS Code. No, it's an extension. Lorem in the editor. So the lorem. Oh, this is cool. I type in the word lorem and I hit enter, and boom, it puts an entire paragraph of what looks like nonsense in there. Lorem ipsum is a famous piece of text because I'm pretty sure it's Latin. Don't quote me on that, but it has a unique number of letters in it to represent almost the entire alphabet. So lorem ipsum is the go-to in placeholder content, because when I save this and come back over, we get a good feel of what a paragraph of text looks like. So whenever you need to generate text or just have something placeholder, you can type out the word lorem, L-O-R-E-M, and hit enter, and it will, boom, drop in a bunch of lorem ipsum. While lorem ipsum is very popular, there is another alternative that I just want to show you guys called doggo ipsum. And there is no fun shortcut for that. But if you go into doggo ipsum, you can see that there are some heckin' good long water tube dog related. Yeah, so I'll drop this link in the chat. I like to use this whenever I can over lorem ipsum and see if any of my clients will call me out on it, but that is a good option. Rain, I'll come to you in 1 second. The only thing that I want to style on that text there is that's right up against where I want it to be. So I'm going to go into my headline content. I'm going to target my p tag, and I'm just going to throw some margin on the top of that of 10 pixels, get that position where I want it to be. Gives it a little bit of breathing room there. Every pixel matters. And that's it. We are done for the evening.
Could you show me one more time how you did the lorem ipsum?
Yep. All you have to do is type out the word lorem in all lowercase, L-O-R-E-M. And then because Emmet has a lorem ipsum generator built in, Emmet's what we use for the exclamation point enter. So you just hit enter on that and that drops in the whole paragraph. And then when you save it, Prettier will run and kind of wrap it down for you.
Thank you.
No problem. Rain, give me 1 second. I'm going to get this code up onto that GitHub link, and then I will come over to you. I'm gonna kill someone. My Git isn't working. All right, never mind. I will upload that code shortly after class once I get it fixed. Sorry, Rain, go ahead.
All right, so I called myself doing the bottom part as well, and my images came through, but unlike other students, mine's look more like MySpace compared to Instagram. So I'm trying over here. You guys see me. At least I put it right. So anyway, let me share my screen. Got a sleepy toddler on my hand, so hold on 1 second.
Almost over the finish line, not only tonight, but for the whole week.
Just gotta keep doing it, man. Okay, let's share the screen.
Wow, that looks great.
No, I tried to log in last night. That's something else. No.
Just checking your chain.
No. Okay, hold on a second. All right, this is my code, right? And
Okay.
I
So the
did
first thing I
go
notice
a few
is-
different sites and try to, you know, but they kind of came out like this.
Okay. So the first thing I noticed, take me back to your code and then give me a remote.
Okay. And on top of that, I did add a span. I did to try to keep them in line.
Yep.
I know I'm missing something. I'm learning here.
So
But,
you want to use your bootstrap grid to get it spaced out going across. So you want to do a div class row, and then each one of those images will be in their own div class column.
Okay.
But in your CSS, if you go back to your code,
Okay, hold on a second. And you can control it if you want to.
Yep. You've got, oh, no, I want to go back down to here. It looks like you tried to do a media query here, but you've got this body in here and it wants to see a curly brace.
Instead of a parenthesis.
I think it wants to see a curly brace here. And then here as well. And so now your CSS shouldn't be mad at you. And so if you go up,
I haven't fixed my series again too. I had it the way it was supposed to, but
so I'm just gonna like get you set up here. We are gonna, oh, sorry, I mean to do that. Let me minimize that.
Okay.
We are going to go over this tomorrow. So if this is but what we're gonna do is we're gonna find wherever, be careful using other code, because you want to be able to, if you ever like showed this to an employer would be like, well, what's slider 1 item doing and what's the difference between that and slider 1?
And
So
literally, sorry.
oh no, I'm just saying, you know, watch out for so I'm gonna, this is the end of your container, so you want to be inside that but towards the bottom. And if you do a row here and do a call, and if we make 5 of them or 6 of them, I don't know how many are actually in it.
I think it
2,
would be like
3.
5 divs, then the span, if I'm not mistaken.
So you don't need any spans.
Oh, okay, excuse me.
Only because the show names don't show up in the mockup. I don't know if where the mockup is, but notice how I put in show 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Look
Yes.
where they're showing up. They're going across the screen the way we want
Yeah.
instead of all the way down. So that's where you'll want to work with putting in your images. And if you get stuck on it, we'll be working on that on Monday anyway.
I'll try to fix it tonight. And have it go horizontally instead of.
Cool. Sounds good. We are over time, which is totally fine. You are welcome to head out. Even if you don't have it working, we'll start Monday helping you guys out. But if you feel like you're close and need some help, I can stick around and help. Otherwise, have an awesome weekend, and I will see you guys on Monday. Goggin, go for it.
So for the portfolio, you want exactly the way you designed, or you want something else?
I want it close to the design. You can use whatever colors you want. And if you are like, I don't really like that design, I want to do it a different way, that's totally fine. But I am using some Bootstrap components in that to make designing that website easier. So like the portfolio card section down at the bottom uses Bootstrap cards to do that layout. So you can, like, you have creative freedom there to use different colors and put in your own content and all of that stuff. But because it's a link, you can like inspect and see the way that I did it and then kind of compare that to the way that you would approach it.
Okay, got it. So this is gonna be our portfolio permanently, or is it gonna be, I'm gonna be design something else again?
Up to you guys. You will learn how to deploy that with GitHub Pages with Nathan when he comes in, so that you can get it up on the internet. But if you decide that you hate it and want to scrap it, we're not gonna like force you to use that
Definitely gonna
portfolio.
change it. Even, like I deployed with Netlify before. I have a couple web pages online already, but yeah, I mean, I'll try to do that just for the project. And
It's good practice to do it, and
Yeah.
we'll keep on going back to that portfolio and learning like how to make it full stack, how to integrate a database, how to add our API calls in, how to do dynamic routing in the URL. Like we will add to that. We'll use that site to convert into React and kind of understand how to convert a site into React that we've already built in HTML. So we will keep on coming back to that project. But by no means is it a requirement that has to be your portfolio site. It's totally, I mean, if you look at if you go to my website, it looks nothing like that. So it's certainly not a hard requirement that you have to use that site. It's more of a
just for
starting point of practice. Exactly.
Right, I got it. No problem.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah.
All right, have a good weekend, guys.
Last call for questions. Have a great night.